Today on Baking with Chickens, I'm gonna show you how to make scallion pancakes. You know, those are the super delicious pancakes that you get at dim sum restaurants. I love these. This is my ultimate comfort food. I grew up eating these all the time with my family when we go out to dim sum, but when I go out now and I get them, they suck. Most every other one just isn't as good as the ones that I make. My family friend, Auntie Yvonne, taught me how to make her secret recipe for scallion pancakes, and I'm gonna show you. I'm Christina, and this is a new episode of Baking with Chickens, the show about conquering your fear of baking, plus nerdy chicken and egg facts from my backyard chickens, Raspberry, Lady Olgaberry, Butterberry, and Fizzleberry. I'm gonna show you how to make these scallion pancakes, but here's the key. There's no recipe. I don't have a recipe for you to follow. I only know how to make it by sight, by touch, and how it feels. And you're probably thinking like, Christina, what the hell? How am I supposed to follow along and make this if you don't give me a recipe? Watch, I'll show you. So much about cooking is about feeling and knowing when it's right. And I'm gonna show you how you can know that about dough and with the scallion pancake recipe. So many of us are afraid of baking, and I definitely used to be this way. But here's a perfect recipe where you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be precise, and you don't have to measure. Don't be scared. If you mess up, try again. It's all good. So this recipe only has 5 ingredients. It's flour, salt, water, scallion, and oil. No eggs whatsoever. But stick around. At the break, we're gonna go show you something called a fart egg. Oh my God! That was so freaking exciting. Let's get started. First, I'm gonna add the flour. I pretty much only put in however much I think I wanna eat. So if there's a lot of people coming, I want a lot of scallion pancakes, I'll do more flour. If it's just, a couple pieces, I'll do less flour. And you're like, how the hell do you know? I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. I'm gonna add some warm water to my flour. You're gonna add it in, take your hand, mix it together, and get a close look as I'm mixing. That's how you know when it's ready, is when there's a certain texture. I can't tell you what it is. You're just gonna have to see it. So as you're mixing, I'm kind of using my fingers to kind of go like this. Mix it around, add in a little bit more water. The beauty about this is you can't really mess it up, because if you put in too much water, you just add in more flour. If it's too dry, just add in more water. So see how it's kind of starting to come together and look like kind of crumbly? That's what you want. So you want it to look crumbly and not dry. So see how it's kind of got this flat, stringy-like texture? This is what Auntie Yvonne, my family friend who taught me how to make these, that's just what she showed me. But this is when I know it's ready, is that when it kind of comes together like this. So when it gets to this point and you're feeling good, this is when you add in the cold water. So you want ice water to add in here, and then it'll bring the dough together. So a little bit at a time, use your hands, work the dough, and you're gonna feel it starting to come together. You add a little bit more. And again, if you make a mistake and you put in too much, no big deal, put in more flour. So I'm kind of just gathering it and smushing it, incorporating all the water into the dough. The idea here is that you want the dough to come together, but it shouldn't be sticky by the time I'm done. So it's sticking to my fingers right now because there's water, but by the time the dough is done and I get it all off my hands, it won't stick to my fingers. Check out the dough. It's not sticky. It's kind of dry to the touch, right? I have all the dough mostly off of my hands. So if you take a look at it, see it's not sticking to me at all, but it's still holding together as dough. It's not crumbly. So the next step is I'm gonna move this out of the way and get my flat surface, and then we're gonna knead it. This is the tedious part. You really have to throw your weight into it and knead it. I try to get it a higher surface so I can put my body weight into it instead of extending my wrist and my hand energy. I'm kind of using my weight to go like this. You need to knead it to get the dough and the gluten to soften and come together. If you don't knead it long enough, the dough won't be soft and silky. When Auntie Yvonne showed me how to make this, she's older and she couldn't even knead the dough anymore because her wrists and her hands hurt so much. But if you're able to do it by hand, I highly recommend it. There's something really satisfying about just kind of pushing this dough and kneading it and feeling it in your hands. And if you're probably like, how long do I knead this dough? Longer than you want, and until everything hurts is the feeling. You're not using your muscle to push, you're using your body weight to really pour into the dough. Something really meditative about this too. Sometimes while I do this, I like to sit here, think about my chickens, how cute they are, little fluffy butts, how they come running to me whenever I have food and snacks. They're cute little... I would like the stool is what I would like. You can feel the dough in your hands start to soften, right? Like it's starting to soften here. It's a lot smoother than when I first had it. Once it's done, we're basically gonna let it sit back in the bowl and let the gluten develop and sit a bit. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna cover it with a cloth and put it in a warm spot. So there's no yeast in this, so there's no rising or anything. It's just letting the gluten in that flour really develop and soften. Let's go check out the chickens and I'm gonna show you something super cool. Oh, hi. So this is where the chickens lay their eggs. And you'll see Fizzleberry is in here right now laying an egg and shooting me dirty looks. Check out this teeny tiny egg. So this is called a fart egg. These are little mistake eggs that chickens accidentally lay. Like there's just kind of like an oops in the reproductive system, and these tiny eggs come out, and they're also called fairy eggs, but I like fart eggs because it's way funnier. But sometimes they are only filled with egg whites or an egg yolk, or maybe it's just a whole mini egg. I'm gonna crack this open later and I'm gonna see what's inside. But check out these other like weird anomaly eggs that came out too. This is this bizarre oblong egg that came out. This is kind of a medium-sized tiny egg, and then this is the fart egg. Fart eggs are cool, like they don't really happen that often. I really want to see what's inside and see if it's all egg white, egg yolk, or if it's a mini egg. You're very loud. So I brought my eggs back down. So we have weird oblong egg. We have kind of mini normal-ish egg. And then we have my favorite, the fart egg. So a true fart egg, from what all my chicken people say, only has egg whites in it. But the last time I had a fart egg, it had only egg yolk. Weird. So we need to find out what is in this fart egg. Crack the oblong egg first. So remember, when you crack eggs, I crack them on a flat surface and not on the edge, because when you put them on the edge, it gets the eggshell inside. So if you crack it on a flat surface, you're less likely to get eggshells inside your egg. Ah! Too much, too hard. All right, so that's a normal egg. Oh no. Yuck. All right, that was oblong egg. Normal but mini-ish egg. Come on. It's fart egg time. Let's find out what's inside. Oh my God! It's a whole teeny tiny mini egg. Oh my God, this is so exciting. I've never seen anything like it. It's a mini egg. I have never seen a whole like mini egg inside a fart egg before. That's just freaking crazy. I'm gonna go back to making our scallion pancakes. The dough should be about ready and we're gonna go check on it. So I covered it with kind of like a wet paper towel because it was starting to get dried out. So you see like the dough is a lot smoother now. So I need to kind of give it another kneading. Yeah, see, so it's like really smooth and soft. So I'm gonna knead it a couple more times, and then I'm gonna chop up my scallions and prep it for rolling. So here's my dough. I'm gonna set it aside for a minute while we prep the scallions. So I have these scallions that have been sitting in water. This is a great trick that you can use if you wanna let your scallions last a little bit longer, or if you wanna regrow them. So these little roots will continue to grow. So when I chop them, I don't chop them all, and then I put them in some water, and they'll last longer. You can also plant them in your garden. So I'm gonna cut them right about here, and then put them back in the jar so that they'll continue to grow. You wanna change this water out pretty regularly so it doesn't get all stanky. Yeah, I said the word stanky. So now I have my green onions. I'm gonna chop them up pretty fine. The more fine you chop them, the better it will taste, because you don't want big chunks of scallions in your mouth. So here's all my scallions. When you're asking me, you know, how fine do you need to cut your scallions? As fine as you can get it. The finer the better. Oh my God, my eyes are burning. Okay, I need a second. Oh my God. All right, I can see now. I set my scallions aside. Now I'm going to roll out the dough. This dough is pretty big. I'm gonna probably cut it in half. I'm gonna roll this into like a really, really thin layer. Again, exactly like pasta. So however much you think you're able to roll based on the space that you have. Here's my dough. It's really nice and smooth, easy to work with, and it shouldn't stick. Again, like, right, see, like it's not sticking to my fingers at all. I'm gonna smash it into a little disc. I'm gonna get a rolling pin and then roll it. So any rolling pin will do, whatever you have. I like this rolling pin. It's a lot thinner. If you look at it really closely, it's actually a sawed-off broom handle. I inherited this from my grandmother, who's actually a really wonderful cook, but she doesn't cook anymore. She's used this her whole life to cook, and I have it now, and I love it because I like how thin it is. It's a lot easier to use than the big, like, French ones with the pointed ends or like the American rolling pins. But whatever you have works. The goal is just to roll it as thin as possible. Thinner the better, but not so thin that you can't lift it up and move it, right? The idea with these is that you want it thin enough so that when you roll it, you can get as many layers into it as possible. So it's pretty thin, but it's not translucent, if you can see. So I'm gonna keep going. It's pretty thin, but I can still handle it. It doesn't stick. So the next step is I have this dough. It's laying here flat. It's rolled out really thin. And then I'm going to pour a little bit of oil on there. How much, you say? Again, preference, but don't be skimpy. If you skimp on it, it won't taste very good. So I want enough oil that I can kind of like rub it over, like all over this, but not like overflow off of the edges. And then we want salt. So take some salt, drop it high so that it distributes evenly. And then you grab a handful of your scallions, sprinkle it on. Again, more scallions taste more better, according to my mother. And then now I'm gonna take the edges and I'm gonna roll it. So you wanna roll it really, really tightly. So when you're rolling, you wanna make sure that you're rolling the scallions into the roll and not just pushing them to the edge. So you wanna get them inside. Like, this is kind of like if you've ever made cinnamon rolls, like the same idea. So you don't want it loose, you want it kind of tight enough. And then like stuff is gonna squish out the edge and that's fine. And then it looks like this. And you've got this one big long thing and then you're gonna twist it. So I'm gonna take this long thing, right? I've kind of got my both hands like this, and then I'm gonna twist it and tie it and tuck it like a little knot. If you've made pretzels or like pretzel knot kind of things, it's like that. I wanna like tuck the ends into the middle and get it to sit like that. So now it kind of looks like this, right? It's like this little knot ball. And then now you want to flatten it out. I find it easier to kind of flatten it with my hands at first because it's so bulbousy. The edges are going to break and stuff is going to squish out the sides, and that's okay. It's totally fine. So now take your rolling pin and then roll it flat once again. Let me preheat my pan to medium heat and put some oil in it. So while my pan is heating, I'm gonna talk to you about how you can save these and make these ahead of time. You can make them like this and put them between sheets of wax paper. That's one way to save it. But I don't recommend letting it sit like this in its raw form for a long time, because then like the flour and the gluten starts to really break down and it gets gummy and gross and gooey. If you wanna make a bunch of these and save them to eat for later, I recommend rolling it out like this, pan frying it, and then freezing it. And then you can reheat them to eat later. Don't freeze them like this in its gummy state. So my pan is heating. I'm gonna add some oil to the pan. I cook this on medium heat. You can lift it up with your fingers. Take it over here and drop it in your pan. So you don't want the heat to be too high because it has to cook through all of those layers of dough to cook through properly. So you'll know when to flip it when you check it underneath and it's golden brown like that. So again, you want to make sure you're cooking it on medium heat because you need it to cook through all of the layers but not burn everything here. So a medium to medium low is your ideal temperature. Right, the scallion pancake is done and we'll cut it. Okay, you could make like a ginger soy dipping sauce for it if you'd like. I just kind of like to eat it on its own. So here are the scallion pancakes. So if you take a look at it, all of the little layers in here. I was always told you want at least 7 layers inside your pancake. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah! So that's why when you want to roll it really thin, so then roll it tightly so you can get all of your layers. It's the ultimate taste test. How'd I do? I'd say more salt. They're awesome. These are my favorite. That's how you make a scallion pancake. No, these are mine. Olga berry.